Hey everybody, I'm Mike, this is budgetgunsandgear reviews, and you are watching The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second every Friday night at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. So uncover your keyboards, fire up your fingers, and come join the conversation.
Hey everybody, I'm Mike, this is Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and you are watching The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second. It is Friday, July 31st, 2020, and I'm glad to see all of you out there. Speaking of glad to see, I have my illustrious and esteemed panel with me. Let me go ahead and welcome the, as always, irascible yet lovable Squibload. How you doing, sir? Are you back with us? He's so irascible, he said, "The hell with this." So moving on, we'll go to the guy with the spectacularly spiffy hat, the tactical pickle himself, Calaveras 32 Special. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. That's for just enjoying the last few minutes of sunlight out here in California, and enjoying actually being off work, before 10 p.m.
Gotta love that. Roll call, are you with us?
Hi.
Hello, Ro. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, I'm alright. How are you guys? I see there's a lot of people here today, so that's good.
Living the dream. Just remember, nightmares are dreams too. So, Squib, if you're back, go ahead and sound off. If not, well, sound off when you get back. I'd like to say hello to everybody out there in the chat. We got Alaskan Ballistics. He was the first one there. Says recording me for his weekly shout out in the video. Cool. Awesome, man. Thank you. S Webb is out there in the house. Skulls 32 Special, whom I can assume is the tactical pickle there. Chris Fulmer in the house. Roll call.
Thanks.
Road call doing double duty. Mystic Guns out there. Squib Load. Speaking of Squib, he is back. How are you, irascible one? What's up this week?
Sorry, I had the YouTube feed going here, so I'm hearing you in stereo, and I didn't know if I was coming or going. Yeah, technical difficulties, right?
It wouldn't be the show without him.
Yeah, no, everything's good. Thanks for the invite.
Let's see. Out in the chat, we got Patriot in the Dark, Ozzy Orsboard barking at the moon. M. Gabriel is voting early for Joe Biden. We're not going to count that one. You got to vote at the time, man.
Well, I mean, we can file it away in case there's, it's really close, right?
Well, we got a good one this week. I think
Unless he's not going to be here later, then I can understand why you might want to vote a bit early.
Well, you only count absentees if it's, really, really close or something, right?
I think
So,
I think it's going to be a landslide this week.
Okay, now here's the thing. Your past couple Moron of the Week, they've all been worthy of voting for. I think that, you're giving us some really excellent candidates, but it's really difficult to vote.
I know, man.
Now, if our national election could just be like that.
I was going to say, that's the mark of a good race. We got John Wright saying hi from Southeast Alaska, Prince of Wales Island. Well, hello right back at you. Welcome to the show, sir. Defense Dad's in the house. Bo Weevil's there. Corey Schreiner's in the house. Hey, Corey, how you doing? Let's see. Defense Dad says, can we mail in our vote? Because those never get messed up. Yeah, sure, go ahead. That way I can do what the bad guys plan to do and just make it say whatever the hell I want. Rob D, New York Outcast, is out there. Says, Squib's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. And speaking of what you're going to get, folks, let me know out there in the chat, please, if my volume levels are wonky. Because I think maybe I figured this out. I know the last couple shows, the panel has been really loud and I've been really soft. So I've run things through Voice Meter Banana as a virtual mixer, and hopefully I've got those levels evened out. But if I haven't, let me know. Pardon me. Speaking of let me know, sounding off out in the chat, remember, folks, this is a conversation. This isn't just me lecturing to you. This isn't just me telling you what I think. I want to know what you think. I want to know what my panelists think. So let's all have this conversation. And the way that you can let me know that, sound off out there in the chat, which I guess if you're watching this on replay is down there, right? So sound off in the chat. Let me know what you think. Tell me what your thoughts and your ideas are about the topics we're talking about. If you're watching this in replay, definitely sound off in the comments. I read them all. I may not answer them all because some of them are a little, but that's okay. I do not want to live in an echo chamber. I welcome diversity of thought and diversity of opinion. It's okay to disagree. It's by disagreeing and talking about and thinking about other people's perspectives that we start to question our own, and we decide whether our own opinions are worth having or not. And we either change it or reinforce what we believe. So let me go back out here. Let's see. G-Web says, which, by the way, hello, G-Webs. G-Web says my volume's good. Patriot says my volume's okay, but Squibs could be turned down. I mean, up. I can turn the chat volume up just a bit if you guys, my panelist volume up just a bit if you guys want me to. So let's see what that does for the mix. And we'll go from there. So, welcome to everybody out there in the chat. New York Outcast says, true, the guests were a bit low, but you're good. Yeah, I didn't do an experiment show like I normally did when I'm trying to figure these things out. I figured, you know, I played with it, with the volume levels, with the voice meter, running it through XSplit Broadcaster and just doing some recordings of stuff. And I think I have it close, but it's great to get a little bit of feedback from you guys so I can fine-tune this. Hopefully we've got it set pretty good now. And let's go ahead and get this ball of wax a-rolling. Now, everybody knows that, or at least there have been a couple shows recently, particularly last week, where we talked about how I believe that while this isn't necessarily the beginning of a civil war as such, I think we are in a Marxist insurrection. I firmly believe it. And I've laid out my case as to why I believe it. You know, I also think they're ramping things up. And let me show you why. Let's first set the stage, though, because some of you may or may not know that the Cheeto-in-Chief sent federal officers out to Portland to protect the federal buildings because they're trying to set them on fire. The federal courthouse there, the protesters, quote unquote, I prefer to call them rioters. I prefer to call them insurrectionists. But, you know, of course, in the media, they're peaceful protesters. Anyhow, these peaceful protesters are lobbing fireworks and other type of commercial grade explosives into the building, trying to set it on fire, shining green lasers into the eyes of the officers, and just generally doing everything they can to disrupt, distract, and destroy. You know, there was the libs claimed, well, the left claimed a victory in saying that Trump's going to withdraw the quote-unquote troops. He's going to get them out of there. Well, yes and no. The agreement is that the federal guys, the excess federal guys, will leave once the locals actually start, you know, doing their jobs. So, yeah. DC says it's NWO, not the Dems. Well, yeah, whoever's behind it, this is definitely a Marxist insurrection. This is a piece from KTLA.com. U.S. Attorney says feds will stay in Portland until attacks end. Mayors want limits on deployments. This is from July 27th by the Associated Press. Christina Pascucci, I think is her name. Oh, I haven't watched these videos. Oh, LA and other U.S. cities say weekend clashes between officers and protesters. Well, yeah, color me surprised. Anyhow, the article at hand. U.S. militarized officers will remain in Portland until attacks on a federal courthouse cease, a top official said Monday after another night of violence. And more officers may soon be on the way. It is not a solution to tell federal officers to leave when there continues to be attacks on federal property and personnel, U.S. Attorney Bill Williams said. We are not leaving the building unprotected to be destroyed by people intent on doing so. Matter of fact, I think that one of the local officials wanted them to just let people into the building. Let them do whatever the hell they wanted. No. Local and state officials said the federal officers are unwelcome. Meanwhile, the mayors of Portland and 5 other major U.S. cities appealed Monday to Congress to make it illegal for the federal government to deploy militarized agents to cities that don't want them. This administration's egregious use of federal force on cities over the objections of local authorities should never happen, the mayors of Portland, Seattle, Chicago, Kansas City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Washington wrote to leaders of the U.S. House and Senate. Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler and City Commissioner Joanne Hardesty later called for a meeting with Acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf to discuss a ceasefire and removal of heightened federal forces from Portland. The city has had nightly protests for 2 months since the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis in May, which, as you all, well, maybe not all of you, there could be some new folks here, and by the way, welcome if you are a new folk. Sound off in the chat so I can hear you. Well, see you, but you know what I mean. Anyhow, for those of you that don't know, I think that the entire George Floyd protests started out for a good reason, because I do think that it was egregious what happened to Floyd, regardless of what his character was, regardless of what crimes he was or was not committing at the time. They were negligent at best. It was deliberate indifference, I believe. For those that don't know, I work in corrections, and I am a use of force and physical restraint instructor. And I know what I'm talking about when it comes to what sort of force you need to be using once you have someone handcuffed and prone. And where you should be, you know, whether or not you should have your knee on their neck, et cetera, putting pressure on their airway, what yada yada, shouldn't be done. It's something called positional asphyxia, and I know damn well those officers knew what that phrase means as well. But I digress. Anyhow, the George Floyd protests, while they started out nobly, were co-opted, and long ago they stopped being about George Floyd and became about disrupting the U.S.'s social fabric and be about disrupting our society, and most importantly, disrupting the election, making Donald Trump look bad, because no matter what he does, he's wrong. But again, I digress. Anyhow, the city has had nightly protests for 2 months since the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis in May. President Donald Trump said he sent federal agents to Portland to halt the unrest, but state and local officials said they are making the situation worse. Trump's deployment of the federal officers over the July 4th weekend stoked the Black Lives Matter movement. The number of nightly protesters had dwindled to perhaps less than 100 right before the deployment, and now has swelled to thousands. Well, yeah, that was deliberate. They continued to attack this federal building until the federal government had to respond, in which case, it's time to bring everybody back. Early Monday, U.S. agents repeatedly fired tear gas, flashbangs, and pepper balls at protesters outside the federal courthouse in downtown Portland. Some protesters had climbed over the fence surrounding the courthouse, while others shot fireworks, banged on the fence, and projected lights on the building. Yeah, what they're talking about by projecting lights is lasers, trying to shine them in officers' eyes, which those things can do permanent damage. Trump said on Twitter that federal properties in Portland wouldn't last a day without the presence of the federal agents. The majority of people participating in the daily demonstrations have been peaceful, but a few have been pelting officers with objects and trying to tear down fencing protecting the Mark O. Hatfield United States Courthouse. Williams, whose office is inside the courthouse, called on peaceful protesters, community and business leaders, and people of faith to not allow violence to occur in their presence and to leave downtown before violence starts. He said federal agents have made 83 arrests. Demonstrations in support of racial justice and police reform in other cities around the U.S. were marred by violence over the weekend. Protesters set fire to an Oakland, California courthouse. Vehicles were set ablaze in Richmond, Virginia. An armed protester was shot and killed in Austin, Texas. And why was he shot and killed? And 2 people were shot and wounded in Aurora, Colorado after a car drove through a protest. Yeah, and who were they shot and killed by? Protesters. Shot and wounded by was a protester. The U.S. Marshal Service has lined up about 100 people they could send to hotspots, either to strengthen forces or relieve officers who have been working for weeks, agency spokesperson Drew Wade said. Chris Klein, a principal deputy director of Federal Protective Service, said an incident commander in Portland and teams from the Department of Homeland Security and Department of Justice discuss what force is needed every night. Klein refused to discuss the number of officers currently present or if more would be arriving. Some protesters have accused Wheeler of hypocrisy for speaking out against the federal presence because, under his watch, Portland police have used tear gas and other riot control weapons on protesters, including peaceful ones. Klein said Portland police should take over the job of dispersing protesters from the courthouse area from the federal officers. I can agree. They should take it over. And they should actually be allowed to do the job. If the Portland Police Bureau were able to do what they typically do, they would be able to clear this out for this disturbance, and we would leave all our officers inside the building and not be visible, Klein said. He said relations between the federal officers, some of whom live in Portland, and city police were good. Portland police responded Sunday evening to a shooting at a park close to the site of the protests. 2 people were detained and later released, police said. The person who was shot went to the hospital in a private vehicle and was treated for non-life-threatening wound. Also late Sunday, police said someone pointed out a bag in the same park where officers found loaded rifle magazines and Molotov cocktails. The shooting was not related to the items, police said. So they're stocking it up. They are arming up. They are ramping it up. So far, my question to the panel is, and to those of you out there in the chat, my question is this. Do you agree with the feds that they need to stay there until locals actually start doing their job? Or do you agree with the locals that the presence of the feds is making matters worse? What do you guys think? Squid?
If the locals had done their job to begin with, they wouldn't have had to call in the feds, now would they? But I don't agree with the way the feds are doing their job. They're doing their job as bad as the locals were doing. 83 arrests? No, it should be more like 830 arrests. Arrest them and prosecute them federally. And if you have to use force up to lethal force. I don't care at this point. We need to put these insurrections down in these cities now and put them down. I'll use something out of the Leftists playbook. By any means necessary. They're not going to take law and order seriously until law and order really comes into effect. They don't just tear gas them and let them run away or try to intimidate them by wearing riot gear. They actually arrest them, prosecute them, throw them in federal freaking prison, not jail, federal prison. And now they're going to face federal charges, not state, not local, not misdemeanor, federal freaking charge them all with treason. I don't care. Do whatever it takes to make an example out of enough of these cities, and you will break this. And if they throw Molotov cocktails at the police, shoot back and shoot to kill. I don't care. These people are the worst of the worst in our country, and I will not miss them if they go away, whether they're incarcerated for the rest of their life or whether they take the asphalt temperature challenge. I don't care.
That's where
Pickle, what do you think?
That's where especially in the cities where the mayors have been telling their local law enforcement stand down, let the crowds do what they want, this kind of stuff. Yeah, I can understand having the feds in there until the problem is ended. On the flip side, this is not going to make many friends on this chat, I'm sure, but that's where
Hey, I don't want an echo chamber, dude. If you got an opinion, spit it out. I don't give a shit.
I'm working on it. That's where I'm just trying to phrase it in a family-friendly way.
Okay.
That's where some of the hatred that, I mean, there are some groups, anarchists, that just want to go out there and destroy and burn. But that's where I think, kind of as a whole, the some of the hatred and mistrust of the government and then the law enforcement being the strong arm of that has been building, in part because of certain things that have been done, and then other divisions not stepping in to put a stop to it, rather they're helping cover it up. So that's where I can understand why some of these places are turning into such a mess, because now you're having areas that may historically have been corrupt and have been protected that are now kind of, everything's coming to a head.
Roll call, what do you think?
Well, I come along the lines of Squid, not so much as what he said, but if these people would have done their job in the first place by just protecting structures and let the people do what they have to do, which is, I guess, protest or throw a little bit of stuff, I mean, it happens at these protests. I've been watching this dude named Portland Andy for the last few weeks since this started, and going down there for 45 minutes to an hour doesn't show you the whole story. I've watched stuff from, yeah, and I've watched this from the beginning of when it started to all hours of the night, and I'm going to tell you, these people brought it on themselves. It's not, oh, well, the feds came in there, so we got to ramp it up. No, it's your fault for continuously attacking federal buildings. There's consequences for every action that you take in life, and there's rewards for every action that you take in life. This is one of the consequences when you do stupid stuff. And what? So we're going to say it's okay to do this stuff? So we might as well just go and burn the White House down, right? Or go burn down the Lincoln Memorial, or things of that nature. I mean, what do you expect the federal government to do when you start attacking property that's technically, it's not owned by them, but they run it? You know what I'm saying? It's the government stuff is owned by the people, and half the people in this country, I would even say more than half, don't want to see this shit destroyed. And that's the point. That's a point in blame. These people brought it on themselves. What, am I supposed to feel sorry for them when they get shot with rubber bullets and tear gas into high heavens? No. I don't feel sorry for these people. You know what they could do? They could go home, work out a strategy which it would fix this stuff instead of going around and breaking everything and trying to do harm. They brought this on themselves. Trump, I didn't vote for Trump, and I'm probably not going to vote for him on this cycle. But I mean, he's not the smartest tool in the shed, or the sharpest tool in the shed by any means, but he's a reactionist. And when they do this stuff, it's going to get a reaction out of them. And what, you don't like this reaction? Well, guess what? There's one way to stop it, and to stop him from doing the things that he does is not to do it. Now, they've gone in there, and it doesn't help when the leadership in Portland says, well, if the federal police are going to come in there, well, we're going to advise our police departments not to help them. Well, if you would have done your job in the first place, you wouldn't have had this mess on your hands and would have continued to dwindle. It didn't just pop back up because the feds came there. Don't give me that. It popped up because Black Lives Matter and all these other stupid organizations They wanted it to jump off because it was dying out. That was dying out. The Chaz, the Chop, whatever you want to call it, that was dying out. And the only reason why it's ramped up again is because the other side ramped it up by doing the things that they did. They don't think they're just as bad as reactionaries as Trump is. And two rights don't make a wrong. And both sides are wrong.
I keep telling
They
you.
shouldn't be going.
I keep telling you,
You know,
that this isn't by coincidence. This isn't random. This isn't reactionary. This is coldly, calculatedly planned to get exactly the results that they've gotten. They wanted, they being the Marxists, the leftists, they want a federal presence to oppose the protests because it serves their purpose. That's my belief. Who do we have hopping in here with us this evening?
That's me, Corey.
Corey, this is everybody. Welcome to the chat, Corey. This is Corey Schreiner. He is a firearms instructor at the school I teach at. Matter of fact, we teach classes together most of the time. What's your opinion on what we've talked about so far, Corey?
Well, I missed a good chunk trying to figure out this whole app process and getting in here.
Had to download Jitsi, didn't you?
Yeah, it was a struggle.
Yeah, getting an avatar for this is even more work, but once you get it, it stays with you.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the good part.
As far as before with this whole Portland, Oregon, and sending the federal officers, honestly, I'm surprised they took it that calmly. Personally, I would have seen the National Guard come in first.
Yeah, I would have thought the governor would have sent the guard in, but he didn't.
And, you know, Trump has the authority to utilize the guard. And he didn't go that step. He ended up sending officers instead. So he didn't necessarily drop the hammer. He's just sending in some aid.
I think that the and I'm just going to call them what I think they are. I think the insurrectionists wanted Trump to throw the guard in there, wanted them to drop the hammer so that they could scream, tyrant, tyrant, totalitarian, Nazi. But he didn't. He didn't fall completely for their trick. But, he had to make some sort of response or he would have looked weak.
Yeah, but his response right now looks weak.
Yeah, that's the problem. I don't think he did enough of one.
Look, here's the
He was
thing.
walking a hard place. There's no way he could, he could have done a quote unquote right response. Because especially depending on who you talk to, any, a response would be bad, and no response would have been bad.
Yep.
That's where I think, at least to me, it would seem they chose, federal agents of whatever alphabet agency rather than the guard. Just, try to minimize the optics issue of not sending in, that's where cops in riot gear in a van has a much different optic than, soldiers in, strikers, in full battle kit.
Well, maybe that means it was a good response because most compromises, if they're good, both sides end up feeling slightly unsatisfied. So I'm maybe this was a good compromise between going, okay, let's send in the guard, and okay, let's not do shit. I don't know. Patriot in the Dark has a question out there. He says, budget guns and gear. If governors and mayors let chaos reign and do nothing, is there a repercussion federally, or does it rely on people just voting them out? As far as I know, Patriot just relies on the people to vote them out. And guess what ain't going to happen in Seattle and Portland and Chicago and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
That's where on that one budget, I, agree 75%. That's where federally there may not be charges brought up against them, but that's where my understanding there's been some municipalities that have allowed damage. I think Oakland might be one of them. Since they allowed damage to federal buildings, they were getting, they tried to request federal money to fix one thing, fix another, and the feds flat out told them no because, the damage is caused by them telling their own law enforcement to stand down and let the rioters destroy stuff. So, there may not be federal charges brought, but there's other consequences.
Good point. Good point. They're not necessarily being punished as far as, okay, you did this, so bad, here's what's going to happen to you. It's, no, I'm not going to help you pay for it. You pay for it. So, and that, I think is definitely a just response. I think it's the bare minimum that should happen. I think there should be actual legal repercussions, but there's not. Armament Naxus says, first, hello, Mike. Thank you for the super chat, by the way, A&A. Says, first, hello, Mike. Second, when chaos becomes the norm, is it not up to us to know better and to step up and say something? This shit is getting crazy. Yeah, it is. I think that we need to voice our, I've been a big proponent always of letting our voice be heard. Whether we go much farther than that at this point, I don't know if we're there yet. And no, don't ask me, well, when is it time to go there? I don't know. It's like art and pornography. I can't tell you what it is, but I know it when I see it. So sorry I can't get any more precise than that. Dee's got a question out there. Let's see. Dee, by the way, hello. You look like you are new to the show. I don't think I've seen your name out there, so thanks for coming by and watching. Says a lot of these people just want to vent anger, so they go to these things and try to start it up. If they keep escalating it, they won't see anything really happen to them while it's election time. You're probably right. They may get arrested and ticketed and fined and slapped on the wrist and let go. Maybe if it gets to the terrorist level. Yeah, I mean, Trump has made noises about Antifa being a terrorist organization. I agree. So who knows? James Pellerin says the rioters are trying to get their huge sympathy moment where the entire population turns against the government and for them. But I think it's going the other way. I think people are getting tired of this crap.
They are, but the thing is, though, because Trump is having such a weak response, I understand people out there going, we can't use the military against civilians. Yeah, you can. Oh, we shouldn't be, doing anything violent to these people or whatever it is. We know the press is going to spin it no matter what he does. We know the left is going to spin it no matter what he does. As far as I'm concerned, he looks weak to the people who elected him and the people who are likely to re-elect him and the majority of Americans who just want this shit to end. And if he doesn't take a decisive action, not only is he not helping our country, but he's encouraging more of this. It's going to spread even worse, and he's going to lose the election. And you might say, well, if he turns the troops loose on him and has them mow him down with machine guns, he's going to lose the election too. Okay, either way, he loses. So at this point, do what's best for the American people, and that is put this shit down.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree. But, maybe he should at least come out and tell the American people, listen, I can be more flexible after the election. I mean, that seemed to work for the Big O, right? So, let me see, what's mine next? So, as I said, the Marxists are ramping up their efforts to destabilize, distract, and destroy. They're ramping up the violence. A case in point is this piece from KKTV.com. One arrested for allegedly firing a gun during the I-225 protest. And yes, by the way, I'm kind of watching the chat. Patriot in the Dark says, not me, I'm here watching Budget because I feel he's going to show something very positive tonight. Yes, I am. Wait till we get to the balls of steel. We're going to be talking about a little guy who's got bigger balls than pretty much all of us put together. And that is a tremendous positive thing. That's one of the reasons I saved Balls of Steel for getting close to the last. So, but we'll get there. You're right. We are going to talk about something positive tonight, too. Anyhow, one arrested for allegedly firing gun during I-225 protest by Lindsey Grew and Ashley Franco from July 25th, 2020. Aurora, Colorado, KKTV. A 23-year-old man was arrested in his home Monday for allegedly firing a gun during a protest over the weekend, injuring 2 people. Samuel Young was arrested hours after Aurora police posted a photo to social media calling on the public to help identifying the person pictured. Young was called a person of interest at the time, but is now considered a suspect and faces 4 counts of attempted homicide. According to police, demonstrators were marching on I-225 at 6:35 Saturday evening when a northbound Jeep plowed through the crowd. While the Jeep was being driven through the crowd, multiple shots were fired by a protester, the Aurora Police Department said. I wonder what they actually mean by plowed through the crowd. If anyone knows of any video of this incident, please send me an email. It's budgetgunsandgear@gmail.com. Please send me an email with a link so I can look at it, because I really would like to see what they mean by plowed through the crowd. Anyhow, while the Jeep was being driven through the crowd, multiple shots were fired by a protester, the Aurora Police Department said. 1 person was shot and a second was grazed by a bullet. People were running after a car aggressively made its way toward protesters on I-225. I heard pops, which APD say came from a protester. That protester shot other protesters, said CBS Denver reporter Dylan Thomas, who was nearby. I watched as a woman who fell off the interstate was rushed to the hospital. Both people are expected to recover. Police are still asking anyone with pictures or videos that show the actions of the Jeep driver to call to 720-913-7867. Police reportedly know who the driver of the Jeep is, but have not arrested or charged that person at this time. I not only find great concern with someone making the decision to drive their vehicle toward protesters on the interstate, but that someone in the protester group opened fire, recklessly shooting 2 people, Interim Police Chief Vanessa Wilson said in a statement Sunday prior to Young's arrest. Well, how about finding great concern that you got a bunch of people blocking the fucking interstate? Maybe you should be concerned about that. Call me crazy. There's my one. There's my one F-bomb.
Crazy.
So, yeah. So there you go, folks. You got them shooting folks down or trying to shoot folks down who, don't want to be trapped in a mob of protesters. Because call me crazy yet again, but I sure as hell wouldn't want to be trapped in a mob of protesters. Armament Naxus says, yeah, another super chat, but what happens when these idiots bring the fight to us patriots and we fire back? Bet we go to jail and they don't. First, thanks for the super chats, dude. Second, I guess it's really going to depend on the circumstances of the individual case. I mean, I know, Corey, that sounds awful familiar, me saying that from this weekend, but I mean, that's what it is, or last weekend. But that's what it is. I think it's going to depend on the circumstances of the case and what happens at the time. Could we go to jail for it? Yeah. Hopefully you live in a pro-gun area. Where I live, it's pretty pro-gun, and I'm not going to be too concerned about it. Unless I do something stupid and egregious, which I really, really, really try not to.
Hey, that's right. I found a video. Looked like it was probably from a news helicopter of that Jeep. And just as a rough estimate, looks like the Jeep's probably doing at least good 40 miles an hour, and people are just diving out of the way.
Oh yeah.
So I emailed you a link.
Cool. Well, maybe he was being a bit aggressive. Let's see if I can find that and go from there with that. See, I love this, man. I like to get the full story, the true story, everything that happened with what's going on.
I don't think patriots are going to have to open fire on rioters unless they go looking for a fight. Unless you live in downtown Portland or downtown Chicago or someplace like that, and what the hell you're doing there, I don't know, because you don't have any rights in those cities, and it costs a lot of money, and really, I mean, most of the stuff is in the suburbs in the country, and they're not going there. And before you go, well, they came to Minerva, okay, whatever. They're going to these
They
big
did.
liberal cities. Yeah, I know, but that was a joke. Whatever. The whole point is they're not going to burn down Minerva. They're not going to burn down.
Well, no, because they would have been leaking if they had tried. That's why there was all those people there.
So if you live in one of these places, if you have a condo in downtown big liberal city X, I guess you're screwed. Otherwise, you're looking for a fight.
You know, another thing too, if it comes to a point where you have to open fire, it's not only claiming self-defense. There's politics involved now too.
Yeah.
You mean like the McCloskeys?
Yep.
Exactly.
All right, let's take a look at this video. I know you guys on the chat can't see it. Not the chat, but the panel can't see it. My bad.
Is your dog protected? Let's find out. So, do you like dogs?
Well, I'm not really
Do you like
hip
worms?
to
Oh,
wanting to
gross.
watch a freaking ad. But, you know, I guess they got to pay the bills some way.
Why? There's ads before your show. There was a commercial for Bill and Ted's whatever new movie.
Sweet!
Yeah, I know.
Excellent. I was going to say, speaking of paying the bills, and then start the pimping my Patreon, but I'm not going to be that crass.
We do want to start a fight with that new video, that chaotic scene on I-225 Saturday evening when that Jeep crashed near those protesters and took off through the crowd with someone firing shots. This is the first time we've seen it from this angle.
And you can hear several shots were fired as the Jeep went by. Police say that they believe the shooter was firing at the Jeep.
Breaking new details here at 5 about
I just saw a dude walk past there with a gun in his hand for sure.
Instead, police in Aurora telling Fox 31 they're getting an arrest warrant.
Yeah, okay.
Firing those shots. Here he is, right here. 2 people wounded. Another person actually jumped from the highway when they heard shots fired. Police have not told us the suspect's name right there. Meanwhile, Fox 31 learning more about how police even let that Jeep on the highway.
And we've also uncovered more about where police believe things went wrong this week. And Fox 31's Nicole Fierro is on it with the very latest. Nicole.
Yeah, Jeremy and Erica, the big question, how did this all happen in the first place? How did the Jeep get on the interstate where people were marching? Please tell me that has a lot to do with communication, rather lack thereof. From this Jeep getting into a crowd of protesters on the interstate to the shootings that followed, police have several aspects to consider. Where do you think things went wrong?
One, pedestrians really aren't allowed on the freeway.
Deputy Chief Harry Glidden says protesters were not communicating their plans to police.
In June, we had protesters actually telling us what they were doing, and even though it's illegal to take a roadway, we knew where they were going, so we stopped all traffic.
They never even communicated with us when they let the Jeep on the highway.
The protest organizers tell us police didn't reach out to them. As for the Jeep getting on the highway,
When we were stopping traffic, he had gotten on past that point, north of where we were. We were not going to put people up in the crowd because it's dangerous to the officers.
no charges have been filed yet for the driver of the Jeep. APD's working with the DA's office and says there's a potential for careless driving charges, but more information's needed.
Right now, all we have is one side of the story. We have the Jeep driver side of the story. He says that he was surrounded, that people were banging on his car, he felt threatened, and thought he needed to escape from that.
The problem solvers
well,
tracking down
there you go.
Sassy, who says he was the driver of the white truck that the Jeep ran into.
It was readily apparent to me that he was going to hit people. I have no doubts.
Sassy says he was staying behind the protest, keeping watch when he saw the Jeep coming fast.
Hoping that I could get in front of him and brake check him and encourage him to slow down. But he was going so fast that by the time I even attempted to do that, he broadsided my truck.
We are taking into consideration the person in the white truck, what their behavior was.
Now, we emailed, physically went to 2 addresses and contacted 2 numbers for who we believe is the driver of the Jeep. Nothing from him yet. Now,
which is pretty smart.
The protest, they are having a press conference, should be starting right now. We'll have more from that as well.
Well, if the guy was actually surrounded at, because I was wondering what made him start to accelerate like that. Was he just, did he just see a crowd and hit the gas, or did he slow down, get surrounded, have people beating on his vehicle, and then hit the gas? If it's the first, screw him. You know, don't, I mean, yeah, they shouldn't be on the highway, but don't try to run down a bunch of people. If it was the second, screw them. You know, I can see why he would do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's not the best quality video. My apologies, for not finding a very good one.
Hey,
But
you found
that's
one,
where,
dude. That was still great, though.
That's where having the driver's side front go, being flat like that makes me wonder about what happened to the vehicle. That's where I seriously doubt they got on the highway with the front flat. So it makes me wonder, was that from the shots being fired? Was that the vehicle was assaulted and the person gunned it? Or what? But
yeah.
It certainly, the rate at which that vehicle was going when, for the couple little, when they reused the live copter footage a few times, that was no 10, 15 mile an hour trying to work their way through the crowd.
No, that was I'm getting the hell out of here, or I'm going to mow you guys down. So I'd be interested to see video of the entire incident. You know what I mean?
But I think New York Outcast asked the most important question. Why the hell were people on the interstate? Why weren't the police there arresting every single one of them?
Should have been.
Kids, not giving them warnings, slamming them all to the ground, throwing cuffs on them, tossing them in the wagon. Yeah, I guess you're going to need a whole bunch of buses from the prison. I don't know what to tell you. But every single one of them should be up on as many charges as they can find. But yet they're not doing anything. Now, if this guy went down there to prove a point, he should have the book thrown at him. But every one of them on that freeway should be in jail right now waiting trial with no bond, no nothing.
I agree wholeheartedly. What do the rest of you guys think?
The no bond, I mean, that's for mine, if you got reason to believe that they're going to disappear or have the ability to avoid making it back to court, then maybe revoking bond is reasonable. But as a base starting point, saying just no bond period, that's, to me,
well, okay, maybe the no bond thing is excessive.
Out of all of these people, this is what, the third or fourth time we've had a freeway block and somebody's tried to drive through. At least this time they didn't pull the guy out of his vehicle, whether he was there on purpose or on accident. He said they didn't pull him out of his vehicle and beat him to death.
Well, I'm not saying stop.
No,
I'm
we
not
need to throw
saying,
the book at people. They all need to be in federal prison for 20 freaking years with no chance of parole. That's going to set the example, and people are going to go, screw this, I'm not blocking an interstate anymore. But instead, no, they're peaceful protesters. We need to let them exercise their constitutional rights. This is going above and beyond a peaceable protest. These guys are thugs, and we need to treat them like the thugs they are.
I'm not saying they're not thugs. I'm not saying they don't need to be prosecuted to the full extent. But if we're going to hold them to the full extent of the law, then I think, we need to adhere to the law as well. And that's where...
It's a good point.
If they have means to, like if they're from another area, like, okay, say they were bussed into, I don't know, I'm just going to throw out random, names. Okay, this is Aurora, Colorado. If they're from Minerva, Ohio, and they were bussed in for this protest, then to me that potential flight risk, that might warrant having a a no bond. If they're from that area, if they're from Aurora and there's no reason to suspect that they're going to try to run, then a bond might be appropriate depending on what their level of involvement was. But yes, every throw the book at everyone involved. The person that, if you hit somebody with your vehicle and take off, then you need to be charged as well. That's right. I mean, everybody involved, to the extent that to the letter of law.
We got the leprechaun out there in the chat stirring shit up. Says anyone here got an XR15 bullpup for sale? Really looking for one that'll go off by itself? I hear that happens all the time, so must be a few out there. We'll talk about him later. You can guess what segment he's in.
He better win, too.
Yeah, so these protesters, I just got a couple things to say. This is James Yeager from Tactical Response telling you to stay in the fight while I pull out my skinny shirt. I mean, that guy has no training. You know, across the way, everybody knows these are just stupid kids. They're allowed to have a firearm that picked the wrong spot, and they should go to jail. Simple as that. No ifs, no ands, or buts. You know, if these people were on the highway, why wasn't the highway shut down? What failure is that? Seems like it's wherever this happened at. They're the failures because they didn't shut down the highway in time. I know if I saw a large group of people, maybe I would try and turn around, but then you're going the wrong way on the highway. So, I mean, those people are in the wrong. And that guy that shot across the way, he's an idiot.
Hey,
So,
Green Badger, how you doing?
I don't... They suck.
Yeah. These guys are, you know, stay the hell out of the road if you don't want run over. I mean, that's just common sense, which, as I keep saying, is a superpower anymore. It's that rare, folks. To continue with the theme of the leftists, the Marxists, the insurrectionists, the New World Order, whoever you believe is behind them, are ramping up the violence. Here's a piece from Breitbart.com from 28th July 2020. AG Barr, Portland protesters using knives, rifles, and explosive devices. Attorney General William Barr told House Judiciary Committee members Tuesday that rioters in Portland, Oregon brought knives, rifles, and explosives as they gathered outside federal property every night during the last 2 months. He made clear they're bringing other more rudimentary weapons as well. Barr said, every night for the past 2 months, a mob of hundreds of rioters have laid siege to the federal courthouse and other nearby federal property. The rioters have come equipped for fighting, armed with powerful slingshots, which can be no joke. With ball bearings as ammo, the right slingshot will go right through your skull. You guys need, by the way, if you don't watch the Slingshot channel, you're missing tons of shit. So go check Jorg out and let him show you its features, man. That dude's channel is awesome. He'll open your eyes as to what slingshots can do. But I digress. The rioters have come equipped for fighting, armed with powerful slingshots, tasers, sledgehammers, saws, knives, rifles, and explosive devices. He noted that a relatively small number of federal personnel are stationed inside the courthouse in order to defend it, and observed, what unfolds nightly around the courthouse cannot reasonably be called protest. Barr added, it is by any objective measure an assault on the government of the United States. Let's see what he has to say.
The current situation in Portland is a telling example. Every night for the past 2 months, a mob of hundreds of rioters have laid siege to the federal courthouse and other nearby federal property. The rioters have come equipped for fighting, armed with powerful slingshots, tasers, sledgehammers, saws, knives, rifles, and explosive devices. Inside the courthouse are a relatively small number of federal law enforcement personnel charged with a defensive mission to protect the courthouse. What unfolds nightly around the courthouse cannot reasonably be called protest. It is, by any objective measure, an assault on the government of the United States. As elected officials of the federal government, every member of this committee, regardless of your political views or your feelings about the Trump administration, should condemn violence against federal officers and the destruction of federal property. The current situation in Portland...
He's right. All of them, regardless of their political affiliation, should condemn the destruction of federal property and the violence that's been occurring. Portland police discovered a bag with loaded rifle magazines and Molotov cocktails during the Sunday night protest, Breitbart News reported. Wow, holy cow, yeah. This is a tweet by Portland police. Says, tonight, Portland police were near Lonsdale Square Park. A person pointed out a bag to them. Inside the bag, police found loaded rifle magazines and Molotov cocktails. Also on Monday, the Department of Justice tweeted photos containing a broader array of weapons seized during riots outside Portland's federal courthouse. Contraband such as gasoline, hockey sticks, defense shields, leaf blowers, paint sprayers, paint cans with paint, and a jar prepped for a Molotov cocktail confiscated by federal law enforcement from violent agitators outside the federal Portland courthouse. Wow, yeah. So they're arming up, folks. That is not peaceful protest, in my opinion. That is coordinated effort. That is planning. That is deliberate. That is premeditation.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, the bags of Molotovs and magazines, pretty sure that's, that qualifies as, terrorism.
Well, it could be. But you know what? All of that stuff, it's the boogeyman. It's not anybody else's fault. Oh no. Oh no. You all know whose fault it is, don't you? Squib, whose fault do you think it is? Pickle, what about you? Whose fault do you think
Trump's
it is?
fault.
Roll call? What are you, man? Some kind of genius? Are you like a politician or something? Because according to PJ Media, that's exactly what Seattle's mayor thinks. Seattle mayor again blames Trump after rioters blew open a police station using a van full of explosives. By Tyler O'Neill, July 30th, 2020. Days after Antifa rioters terrorized Seattle, driving a van full of weapons and explosives with the mob in order to set fires and attempt to blow up police departments, Mayor Jenny Durkin focused her attention squarely on President Donald Trump, accusing him of running a dress rehearsal for martial law. She claimed that Trump's efforts to bolster local law enforcement to combat a rising tide of crime and violence have decreased public safety. In a press conference addressing the Antifa riots, Durkin claimed the president wants the violence. The riots on Saturday followed a protest in support of the Antifa rioters in Portland who have attempted to burn down the federal courthouse and justice center in nearly 2 straight months of violent riots. Seattle protesters used a van packed with fireworks, smoke bombs, stun guns, bear and pepper spray, gas masks, and more. At one point, rioters set off an explosive that blew an 8-inch hole through a wall of the police department's East Precinct, the Seattle Times reported. Rioters injured 59 police officers. Durkin focused her ire on Trump. I hate to say it, no you don't, but it looks like this president is doing a dress rehearsal for martial law, sending in federal forces to take over police duties in city after city for political purposes. And you're allowing the anarchists and leftists and Marxists to take over your city for your political purposes. The mayor told MSNBC's Rachel Maddow on Monday, "It is frightening and it's making things worse. It has not improved public safety. It has decreased public safety." I think it's done more to improve public safety than you allowing them to run rampant and do whatever the hell they want. Let's see what this person had to say.
This is not a Republican or Democrat issue. This is about America and the proper role of law enforcement. I hate to say it, but
so let law enforcement do their job.
But it looks like this president is doing a dress rehearsal for martial law, sending in federal forces to take over police duties in city after city for political purposes. It is frightening and it's making things worse. It has not improved public safety, it has decreased public safety.
You know, who is it out there? Who was it? Chris Fulmer. Dude, I agree wholeheartedly. Chris says that's some type of mental gymnastics right there by the mayor. And I'm not even a fan of Trump. Last week, President Trump announced that he would send federal officers to help fight a crime wave in American cities in an effort dubbed Operation Legend. The name honors 4-year-old Legend Taliaferro, who was shot and killed while he slept on June 29th in Kansas City. Trump originally mentioned Chicago and Albuquerque, New Mexico, but on Wednesday, the Department of Justice announced that federal officers would also bolster local police in Cleveland, Detroit, and Milwaukee. Most likely U.S. voters support Operation Legend, 55%, according to a recent Rasmussen poll. However, Democrats have framed the issue as an invasion, an occupation, or, in the words of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a dispatching of stormtroopers. Yet it seems Seattle could really use the help when it comes to combating dangerous Antifa rioters. In a press conference on Wednesday, Durkin and Police Chief Carmen Best fleshed out just how dangerous Saturday's riot truly was. During the riot on Saturday, police spotted a van following a group of rioters and stopping just outside the East Precinct. At about the same time, explosions started going off outside the precinct. A witness later told police he or she had seen baseball bats and explosives inside the van earlier in the day. Police impounded the van. After obtaining a search warrant, they discovered firework pyrotechnics, smoke bombs, stun guns, bear and pepper spray, makeshift spike strips, and gas masks, Seattle Times reported. Best expressed the obvious, saying the van provided evidence that not everyone who comes to these protests is peaceful. Peaceful protesters do not show up in a van full of explosives. Durkin later insisted that most of the crowd protested peacefully, but even she admitted that the Antifa rioters seemed well organized with this kind of destructive power. Well, no shit. Police also found remnants of a Molotov cocktail that exploded near a juvenile detention facility that is still under construction. The bear spray is causing burns and itching and stinging to officers' face and exposed skin, Sergeant James Lee, who works with the city's arson bomb squad, said at the press conference. This lasts much longer than the type of pepper spray that police use and is much stronger. It is not safe for use on humans. Best reported that 59 police officers suffered injuries during the protests. Despite all this heinous violence, Durkin hailed an historic civil rights reckoning, claiming that peaceful protests are good for America, and they are, and good for our city. The problem is, none of these have been peaceful. They push us to be better. They are a core tenet of who we are as a country. The mayor did deign to condemn the arson, destruction, and violence, claiming that they undermine the push and need for and voice for systemic change. She urged peace instead, claiming that the violence is sowing those divisions that the president wants and playing right into his hands. No, no, no! The violence being perpetrated by the left, by the Marxists, is doing exactly what, if you guys go back a few weeks, that video that I showed about the communists driving wedges between us using race and identity politics. That is exactly what's happening here. And that's exactly what your side wants, lady, because you are using it to exploit the George Floyd atrocity and gin up division and distrust and distraction during an election year. All of it from you Marxists.
That's for blowing holes in in the walls, even though 8 inches isn't very big. Sorry, to me it starts to sound like what the VC did when they blew holes in the walls of the Saigon, what the heck is it called?
The embassy
during the Tet Offensive, and so they could do an assault. And so doing, that's what allowed the Vietnamese government to claim, different political stuff. Sounds like a very similar tactics being used here. Maybe I'm just stretching that a bit, but it starts to ring bells for me.
No, I think it's good that you're reaching back in history to look for a parallel, because not enough people learn from history, do they?
Nope. They sure don't. So, these guys are this does not sound to me, and I know I keep harping back on this. This does not sound to me like any of this is by chance. The more time passes, the more incidents happen, the more it's looking to me like this is a deliberate act. They've got a weapons stash following them around with a van. They have weapons planted in bags in parks, just in case they need it. Rifle magazines, frickin' Molotov cocktails, pre-made, staged, ready to go, just in case they need it. This is an organized, deliberate, calculated, premeditated movement to do exactly what I've been talking about. People think I'm nuts. I know people think I'm nuts. Oh, this isn't an insurrection. This isn't bullshit. This is all deliberate.
Let's give that some plausibility based on the standpoint of what you're talking about them having weapons on the standby in case this escalates. At the point these clowns stop just burning stuff and looting stuff and throwing stuff and shining laser beams, but they're actually walking down the streets and shooting at anything that moves and really, I mean, they're armed. At that point, does Trump have every justification for sending in everything he's got and mowing these people, turning them to Swiss cheese?
Oh, yeah.
So what if Trump's waiting for that?
Could be.
They're playing games. This is America. They need to be concerned about our safety and not by telling us to wear a stupid, pointless mask, but to actually put this crap down.
Well, Squib, you segue right into my next topic. Because, you know, this is a show about the Second Amendment, right? This is a piece from the Truth About Guns by a Truth About Guns contributor from July 29, 2020. Violence, rioting, and looting are why you need an AR-15 rifle now more than ever. By Will. All American gun owners have, at some point, heard the refrain, "You don't need an AR-15," from FUDs and leftists who can't comprehend why anyone might need a firearm that can fire more than a few rounds. Just buy a bolt-action hunting rifle, they say. Or perhaps their line of reasoning is more like, "You're a monster for owning that scary black weapon of war. How do you dare to own a gun that's responsible for the deaths of so many children?" Of course, we who understand that shall not be infringed part of the Second Amendment know that those arguments are ridiculous. There is no reason you need to prove that you need any particular firearm. The Second Amendment is there to preserve our God-given right to own whatever we please, with a few unreasonable legislated exceptions. And of course, guns don't commit violent crimes or mass shootings. Violent, lawless criminals do. While I agree with both of those lines of reasoning, I think that the scenes from places like Minneapolis, Seattle, Portland, and Seattle and Portland have given us AR-15 owners one more way by which to defend our right to keep and bear those scary black rifles. I would add AK-47s and other derivatives to that list as well with the AR-15.
And magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. That's right. I don't care if it's a 30, 40, or if you want to go with the D60 or one of those 100-round betas. You know, if it's, you know, if you're going to start having these mobs, you know, coming, you know, with rifles, Molotovs, and this kind of stuff, just attacking anything and everything.
Yep.
Then, you know, I hate to say it, but maybe, you know, it's, you know, going to reach a point at some point, kind of like you said earlier, that you don't know when, but you can tell the difference when it happens.
Yep.
It might come down to a point where, you know, society has to decide that they've had enough with these morons and help them with the room temperature challenge.
Yep. The AR-15 is precisely what many of us need to defend ourselves from violent mobs and rioters. Who hasn't seen the videos of anarchy, intimidation, and violence from cities around the nation as of late? Violent criminals smash shop windows, loot and burn stores, march around in all-black uniforms to intimidate law-abiding citizens, and, worst of all, violently attack and, in some cases, try to kill innocent bystanders and shop owners. All right, now I got to say one thing that struck me about this picture right here. It's like, I think it's like a newspaper box or whatever set on fire, but there's a dude with an Elmo head on dancing around. I think his sense of humor is awesome, by the way. That's just great, but I digress. Anyhow, citizens have been dragged from their cars and assaulted, shop owners have been intimidated, beaten, and killed, and bystanders and journalists have been attacked by vicious mobs. While all of that has happened in riots before, these recent riots are the worst in recent memory and are far more widespread than any others. What have they shown law-abiding Americans besides the fact that many of their fellow citizens are willing to act like violent thugs when given the ability to do so? That one of the reasons you need a firearm like an AR-15 is to defend yourself from a violent mob when the police can't or won't do anything to help. If you were a shop owner under attack by dozens of looters, what would you want to defend yourself? A Remington 700, the epitome of the hunting rifle that fuds and gun grabbers have temporarily deemed acceptable for Americans to own? No, of course not. You'd want an AR-15 with as large of a magazine as possible. If you were an innocent motorist surrounded by a vicious mob banging on and rocking your car, a situation many Americans have found themselves in recently, what would you want to have to defend yourself with? A Colt single-action Army revolver? No. You'd want something with a bit more firepower and capacity. The Peacemaker is great and a beautiful firearm, but to fight off a crowd that large, you'd want more than a 6-shooter. The lesson of all this is that the police will not defend you if the mob attacks. When it really counts, you will probably be outnumbered and the police will be preoccupied, if they haven't already been withdrawn or defunded. That's why you need an AR-15. It may be the ideal weapon to even the odds against a vicious, violent mob. Americans are starting to recognize that. It's why they're buying more guns than ever right now, most of which are semi-automatic handguns or, yes, those scary black rifles that the gun control industry and FUDs love to hate. Furthermore, the current national unrest has shown the true purpose of the Second Amendment. It wasn't included in the Bill of Rights to make sure you can hunt. It was meant to protect your right to own the weapons with which you can effectively defend yourself and your family from a violent criminal, an unchecked mob, or a tyrannical government. The push for more gun control has been gaining steam in many states before the COVID national emergency and riots. Politicians on both the right and the left were attacking our right to own AR-15s because they said that those firearms had been used in mass shootings and were therefore unacceptable. That line of reasoning is patently ridiculous. It always has been because it places the blame for those crimes on the guns rather than the violent criminals who committed them. Those justifications now look even more out of touch because increased gun control would mean that Americans couldn't defend themselves from the violent mobs and the criminals that are now freely roaming and terrorizing many of our cities. Law-abiding citizens are under siege. Now, hopefully a broader swath of Americans are seeing why they should own an AR-15 and why their fellow citizens should be able to as well. I've never been one to think that you should have to prove your need to own anything. I certainly don't think you should have to show you have a need for a specific type of firearm. The Second Amendment protects our right to do so. It's our certificate of need. But if there were ever a time when that need was obvious, it's right now. McCloskeys are proof of that. Without their AR-15, they might well have been injured or killed or had their home looted and burned by the mob. Be like them with better, safer gun handling skills. Buy an AR-15 and be ready to defend yourself, assuming you live in a state that gives you that option. And if you don't, contact your legislators. And I will agree with what Squib said out in the chat. If you don't have one already, you're way behind the curve, because you ain't going to find one for a reasonable price at this point, and you're going to be hard-pressed to find the ammunition for it.
You know, there was one time I was talking with somebody I've been working with for a long time. He's a gun guy. He's, you know, but he's not an advocate or anything else like that. And when ARs had come down from $1,200 back down to $400, I said, "Hey man, they're dirt cheap and you can find them everywhere. You gonna buy one finally?" No. And they went back up to $1,200, but then they came back down to $400. And because they go up and down, I've watched the price spike since the early 90s, right? Go up, go down, go up, go down. You can't find them, the market's flooded. You can't find them, the market's flooded. There may be some people out there that go, "I've seen this 8 times already. I'm just going to wait for the price to go down." Yep. It may do that depending on what happens in the next year, couple of years. Who knows? And I'm not encouraging somebody to go out there and waste $1,200 on a $400 item. But no. Why didn't you get one or 2 or 3 or 4? Or at the very least you go, "Well, I just don't have any money." Dude, a lower receiver was $40 frickin' dollars.
Yep.
You get that lower.
I got a couple stashed away.
Yeah, and you build it later, you know.
Yep.
Because it's, yeah. But it's, and so there's really no excuse. You know, if you know how to use it, then you know what I'm talking about as far as being able to use it as a force multiplier. I hear people call certain things force multipliers that are not. Like somebody called night vision. It's like, no, dude, that's not what it means. Okay.
Yeah.
This is something that if it's used properly And for the people who don't know how to use it, there's lots of people out there who do. They'd be willing to show you. I'd be willing to show you. Now, of course, you got to watch out for those bad instructors out there that think they know or they say they know, but they really don't. But still, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it. And it's unobtainium and 3 times, 4 times the price it should be.
Listen, the time to get a fire extinguisher isn't when your house is in the middle of burning down. It's the same thing with this. It's absolutely the same thing with this. What do the rest of you guys think? Is this proof of why you need? Let's avoid the argument of having to show that you need something. But isn't this the current circumstances, the insurrection we're in the middle of, all the violence, all the unrest, all the garbage that's going on right now? Does this show this is precisely why you need a semi-automatic rifle with a detachable box magazine capable of holding the standard 30 rounds or more?
Heck yeah. That's where, where I live, I'm far enough outside of downtown Sacramento, so the last sets of riots we had didn't reach my house. But that's where, whenever I was home, I had, a semi-auto pistol with 2 spare mags, and then, my AR within reach at all times, just in case I had a mob come to my home. That's where I'm not going to go out and actively, search for a problem, but that's where I'm watching the news and seeing, just 5 miles from me, things where you'd have a mob of, 1,000 people just destroying anything they get their hands on. To defend me and mine, absolutely, having something like that, that's where, in a rush, that big of a crowd would eventually get you. But that's where if you can start reliably, putting rounds down more than one at a time, there's a chance you can get through it.
Yep. What do you think, Corey? You still with us?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that every household should have one. If you're legal to own a firearm, there should be an AR somewhere in your collection.
Can't disagree with that. There's a reason it's the most common rifle in America right now. Let me go out here to the chat and see what they've been saying. I haven't been keeping up with them.
Well, most common, because at least before this whole fiasco and the prices shot up again, they were reasonably affordable. They may be a little bit more complicated mechanically for people who don't understand them to try to build them or fix them. But the operation of how to use them, if you have one that's already in functioning order, they're simple enough that you could, heck, that's for whether it's an AR or an AK. Anyone over the age of about 13 could be taught how, the rudimentary of how to use one.
Younger than that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The child soldiers, which I don't advocate, of course, but in some of the war-torn areas of Africa, that's where Swib, I think I've mentioned before when he was in Somalia. He saw plenty of them. That's where there, it doesn't take a lot to teach them how to do the basics.
No. Nope. I think everybody ought to have 1 or 2 or 3, and pistol version or a short-barreled rifle if that's what you want to do, or
And the fact that you can customize it for your situation, for your state laws, and for your stature is one of the really nice things about it. Maybe you buy one off the shelf because you're afraid to assemble one, and then you realize the stock just don't feel right or something else, and it's not that hard to get the tools and learn how to. You really don't even need to buy special tools. I put my first one together with channel locks and a 3/30 seconds punch.
Yep.
But I mean, and it's not to imply that it's something dark and seedy and sinister and criminal. But if you want to change it up later for something, as long as you were within your state laws, go ahead and customize it, because take the thing with you that you shoot best.
Yep.
Right.
Hell, you can even it could be like a bag full of golf clubs. That I use this rifle at longer range. I use this rifle at medium range. This is my close range rifle. You know, you can set them up for any damn situation you want, and then pick the specific tool for that specific job. They're great.
And then as far as training, if you don't know how to use them or you don't really have any training, you can get different kinds of training that can teach you how to use one platform that's set up primarily for this.
Yep.
And still be able to effectively use it in other situations if you end up in those situations. Either from the standpoint of, I don't have the space or money to have multiple platforms, or this is what I think I'm going to use it for primarily, but what if I end up in X, Y, or Z? Well, here's how, I mean, a lot of people would say you can't clear a room with a full-size 20-inch AR-15, you know, with a fixed stock. I've done it.
I was going to say, I don't know about can't. It may not be the best...
I've done it.
It may not be the best tool for the job, but you can damn sure do it.
Yeah, that's where, necessity is the mother of, invention. That's for, and the AR has a low enough recoil. It's like, okay, even if you, like, okay, that 20-inch barrel with the full-length stock, okay, maybe it's a little tight for your, the quarters. Anyone of, I would say average strength could probably hip fire the thing if they needed to, so they could pull the receivers next to your hip. It may not be the most accurate thing ever, but in a, hits the fan situation, it's better than nothing. That's for dang sure.
Patriot in the Dark says, I agree. Everyone should own one or two or more child soldiers. All right, smart guy. Hey, everybody. Go ahead, Ro.
Two things. One, can we stop using Marxist, because that's like an odd word to say, and just call them poop heads? And two,
you don't need an AR-15. Just buy a shotgun. Buy a double barrel shotgun.
You don't want us to call them Marxists because every time you think of Richard Marx.
It's all these damn Richard Marx fans around here. That's the problem. No. Geez, why is I just realized my chat replay ain't working. Not replay, but my chat viewer here ain't working. What the heck? Do I have to redo this every time? What a pain in the butt. Anyhow.
Technical difficulty on Right of the People?
I know, right? See, I fixed it. That was an easy one. I just noticed it and fixed it. Anyhow. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Hey, everybody out there in the chat, we got like 27 watching. We got 9 thumbs up and 1 thumbs down. Thanks for the engagement, hater. If you like what you see, man, give me a thumbs up. It helps YouTube and the algorithm know that this is something worth watching, and it helps let them know that they should be recommending this content to people. So, hit me with some love.
And if you're watching this later on replay, leave a comment in the comment section so he knows who's watching the video. Just let him know what you think of it.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, everybody here in the panel, we all make videos. If you watch any of the videos, the comments are appreciated.
Absolutely. Even if there's something that you think is jacked up, let me know. Because if it's something that, is something I can fix, I can fix it. That's what got me to working on the sound that hopefully we're all enjoying is wonderful tonight.
At this point, you'll never get it all fixed.
No, but, hey, I can at least try to improve. So, we've shown that these insurrectionists, rioters, protesters, wayward souls, whatever you want to call them, are ramping up the violence, that they're doing it in a coordinated manner, and that this is why you need those semi-automatic firearms and firearms in general. I've long said a 22 in your pocket is better than a 45 in your safe. So if all you have is a single-shot shotgun, well, you know what? That's better than nothing, right? Debatably.
Just, if all you got is a single-shot shotgun, especially with the break action, because those are going to be relatively slow to load, just run, practice drills, with your, run your reload drills so you get.
Absolutely.
So
practice.
That way you can do it by muscle memory. You're not having to look at it, you're not having to think about it. you can just cycle through as quickly as your platform allows, because it'll give you, in a bad situation, that may give you the edge that you need.
You fight with what you got, not with what you want. But anyhow, so you would think that, we've all laid this out, and to all of us, I think, watching this and being a part of this discussion, it's common sense, right? Well, as always, there are those who disagree. This is an article from the Gun Feed from, it's relatively recent anyway, by Larry Keene. DNC platform goal: end the firearm industry. For those of you that don't know, the DNC is the Democrat National Committee. Presumed Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden called the firearm industry the enemy from the debate stage 1 year ago. Now, the rest of the party plans to follow him in that announcement, with the Democratic platform that lays out an agenda to dismantle the firearm and ammunition industry and destroy Second Amendment rights in America. The DNC posted the party's draft platform online, which will be formally adopted during the Milwaukee convention starting August 17th. Just 2 paragraphs of the 80-page document are dedicated to firearms, but not much space is needed when the party is in lockstep. The plan includes criminalizing private firearm transfers, disrupting interstate commerce by criminalizing online firearm and ammunition sales, instituting endless delay windows for background checks, banning the manufacture and sale of modern sporting rifles, i.e. the AR-15, AK-47, anything semi-automatic, evil-looking, and has a detachable box magazine. Banning the manufacture and sale of modern sporting rifles, banning the manufacture and sale of standard magazines, enacting licensing schemes to exercise Second Amendment rights, enacting ex parte red flag laws to seize guns without legal recourse, mandating home storage requirements under penalty of law, repealing the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act to subject the industry to frivolous lawsuits. Former Vice President Biden already told America exactly how he feels when it comes to law-abiding citizens demanding their civil rights. Union auto worker Jerry Wayne questioned Biden on his commitment to safeguarding gun rights, only to be the target of Biden's temper when he jabbed a finger in his face, telling Wayne not to be such a horse's ass and telling him he's full of shit. Biden has called for DNA-enabled smart guns, despite no such technology existing, and the fabled regular so-called smart gun was an abject failure. He told voters he would appoint former U.S. Representative Robert Francis Beto O'Rourke, Democrat, Texas, who I like to call Beta O'Cuck, as his gun control sheriff, after O'Rourke said hell yes to forcibly confiscating modern sporting rifles. Biden answered CNN's Anderson Cooper when he asked if his federal buyback plan would mean the government would confiscate firearms. Bingo, Biden said. You're right. If you have an assault weapon, the fact of the matter is they should be illegal, period. This isn't just Biden pushing his radical rights-grabbing agenda. This is the party platform. These are the stated goals. This is truly an agenda. It ignores facts. For instance, the draft DNC platform wants to close the so-called Charleston loophole. They would do this by giving no time frame by which the FBI's National Instant Criminal Background Check system would be required to complete a check to a gun sale. Right now, 91% of all background checks are completed instantly. Just 9% are delayed. Of those, 88% are finalized within 3 working days, and a full 94% are completed with 10 days. Congressional gun control advocates would rather shut down background checks and deny sales outright if they could. We know because instead of following the law, U.S. senators tried to shut it down during the busiest firearm buying period on record. The party's objective to ban the manufacture and sale of the most popular selling centerfire rifle isn't new, but it is getting renewed emphasis. President Bill Clinton signed the 1994 assault weapons ban, and even the Centers for Disease Control concluded it had no meaningful impact on crimes reduction. NSSF recently surveyed likely voters in 18 swing states, and more than half responded that they wouldn't support a ban on modern sporting rifles and want politicians to respect individual rights and enforce laws presently on the books. The DNC is listening to their radical base and not the rest of America. That's why they continue to demonize the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, which denies activist politicians and lawyers from bringing frivolous lawsuits against the industry for the consequences of criminal activity by individuals. They would destroy an industry through litigation that would be akin to taking Ford to court for the crimes of drunk driving. The platform wasn't the product of Biden's thinking, but those propping him up. They're ramming through a radical agenda to disarm law-abiding Americans when they're buying firearms in record numbers over concerns of personal safety. This is a platform that is far beyond being out of step with America. It's tripping over itself. So, does this surprise anyone that the Democrat National Committee has a platform that includes horrific gun control? Doesn't surprise me. I know that a lot of people will tell you, and I believe it as well, that the Second Amendment isn't a Republican thing. The Second Amendment isn't a right thing. It's an American thing. Left, right, no matter who you are, the Second Amendment is your right. And I agree. But it seems that the majority, not all, because there are so-called right side of the aisle politicians who do engage in gun control activity, but the majority of it comes from the left. It comes from the Democrat Party. That's why I can't fathom some of my friends, and yeah, Bob, if you're out there listening, I'm talking about you, who value freedom, who value liberty, who value the Second Amendment, but vote Democrat. I guess maybe it's not that they don't value those things. It's just they value other things more, would be my guess. It just, I don't understand how they can fail to grasp that the ability to be armed, the ability to defend oneself, is the guarantor of the rest of your liberty. And that makes it something that you have to protect, or everything else goes away. Am I off on that?
Without the second, there are no others.
Precisely. So there you have it, folks. The entire, the roll call, roll call, bringing out the training day quotes. With a shotgun, you can get surgical, Jake. Good for you. But yeah, despite all this unrest that we have going on, the left wants to take your guns, period. And again, it's, I think, no accident that that's part of their platform. I think that, remember, I believe this is a communist insurrection, a Marxist insurrection. They have ramped up their tactics and they're ready to move. They're ready to strike. They're ready to really take over. Over the past several decades, they've been inching their way in, infiltrating academia, infiltrating, our school systems, infiltrating the media, Hollywood, newspapers, everything to try to control the narrative in this country, to slowly erode what makes America America. I think they're ready to start speeding the process up, and that's what I think this violence is about. And I think that they know that in order to make that happen, they have to get rid of our guns, the people who would resist. I think it's no coincidence that this stuff is happening at this point in history. Again, I would love absolutely nothing more than to be proven dead wrong on all this. I would love it. Unfortunately, I don't think I am. But I could be wrong. Shit, I hope I am. So, you know, I've Richard Marxists. So I've laid out the case. Hopefully, I can get away from this line of thought, this line of reasoning, for the next couple 3 shows at least. Go back to just regular gun news and stuff, but you know, again, as I said last week, this is stuff that needs talked about. This is stuff that we need to discuss. We need to have this discussion. We need to have this information out. We need to have it disseminated. We need to be thinking about these things because we need to be watching for this. So keep your eyes open, America, because I think as November draws closer, things are going to get worse. They're going to ramp up their efforts because they want to do everything they can to get control of the White House, to keep control of the House of Representatives, and to gain control of the Senate. Because if they have all 3 of those, there's a rough time ahead. In other news, I'm gonna start talking about stuff that's, well, I was gonna say a little happy, but maybe not so much happy as entertaining. Yeah. Oh, excuse me, sir. I am somewhat busy at the moment. Sorry. Mr. Bad, Oscar, had to come in and get petted, as those of you who can see this can see. There. You're a wonderful cat. Now go away. I'm busy. Anyhow, without further ado.
And now prepare yourself for another tale of stupidity in this episode of Moron of the Week.
Yeah, we got some oh my goodness, we got something to talk about this week. Last week I proposed the people who did the vetting for the Not Effing Around Coalition, the NFAC, as the morons of the week. Yes, I did. Well, it ain't just their the people who do the vetting who are the idiots. Oh no, it gets way better than that. Their leader is a complete freaking loon, just out there, done. Grandmaster Jay, after the negligent discharge that happened in Louisville, which wounded 3 of his militia members, yeah, he doubled down, and he doubled down hard on he doubled down hard on on trying to defend all this garbage. Let's see, where am I? No. Okay, I gotta add. Hold on one second. I should have set this up earlier and didn't, so I apologize. I need to add a source here so that I can.
Gabriel says, "All right, Joe for vice moron."
What's that?
Gabriel says, "All right, Joe for vice moron."
Joe for vice moron? Yeah. Let me add a doggone source. There we go.
With regard to this, I've been putting links in the chat to Pew Pew Park's channel. He does a video on this, and he includes links to the video you're probably trying to pull up. Anybody out there who's listening, even on the replay, go look up Pew Pew Park. It's 3 separate words: PEW space PEW space PARK. And he does a video. It should be his most recent one on this. So go check it out. It's a pretty good one.
All right, let me stop this and get this back to. Let me get this back to the end.
It's my first weapon that I ever bought. Bought this weapon back in 19.
All right, so this is Grandmaster J trying to defend the indefensible. So, yeah.
Hold on a second. We here on the morning mental. I'm gonna show you just how stupid some people are. Give me a weapon.
By some people, he means himself. Now, just so y'all know, this video is flipped reverse. So no, he doesn't have a lefty AR here. It's just the video's reversed.
This is my first weapon that I ever bought. Bought this weapon back in 1990 in Germany. This is an XR-15 Shorty. Call it
Shorty?
a bullpup.
Bullpup?
This bitch will not do walk down. The interesting thing about this weapon is if I pull back both, see that? See both? No bullet in there. Pay very close attention. If I'm not paying attention and I take this weapon and I bang it, look what just happened. The bolt goes forward. The weapon has fired. I didn't touch the trigger. I just simply banged it on the table.
So it's an open bolt AR-15.
Bang this on the ground, you will blow your head off. It happens in basic training.
Yeah, and people blow their heads off every day.
And you all get a letter and a flag saying your son was killed in a training accident. An old shotgun. If you drop it, it will fire. So don't believe these motherfuckers running around talking about you should have had your hand on the trigger. You don't have to have your hand on the trigger. Let me show you again. I'm going to sit down. I'm tired.
Let me know when I can jump in and tear this guy apart.
And your hand was not on the trigger. Doesn't make a difference whether it
I'm
was
guessing he's got the full auto Glock-o-matic.
Unless you understand weapons for real. Don't you listen to these motherfuckers who have no intention of ever picking up one, and who don't understand that weapons go off by themselves all the time.
Weapons go off by themselves all the time. They just have a mind of their own and say, I'm going to go ahead and discharge right now. Yay! There's so much stupid contained in this few minutes of video. It's unbelievable. I'm surprised this guy doesn't have to have a fucking ventilator in order to breathe. Absolute retard. Ay, ay, ay. Moron doesn't begin to touch what this fool is. Yes, I know, Pickle, that's two of them. I couldn't help it. This guy deserved to have the F-bomb dropped on him. So, yeah. Squib, go ahead and tear him apart.
So he said he bought it in Germany when he was serving overseas and brought it home. I'm not saying that you couldn't bring a weapon home from overseas. People do bringbacks in war. But I don't know that he would be able to actually, first off, on base, they wouldn't be selling. They do sell, I remember, they had AR-15s in the PX on base. Really cheap, too. But that was stateside, not overseas. There wouldn't be a point for it. The other thing is, that I don't know that they would necessarily let him go out in town, purchase one. Not that I'm sure you could get one in Germany and bring it back on base, because you think, oh, well, it's my private property. No, you have to store it in the base armory, and you need permission from your commanding officer in order to do that. So there's a lot of holes in that. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it would be highly irregular. The other thing is, take a close look at it. Even though it doesn't have a muzzle device, and that might make you think, oh, it was around in 1990. The assault weapons ban didn't happen until 1994. Nobody had rifles with no muzzle device in 1990. Take another look at it. It's got a flat top with a clamp-on carry handle. Those didn't exist in 1990. I can tell you, I was around back then. The handful of civilian AR-15 manufacturers that were, it's not like today. What you see out there today is not what was available back in 1990. Most of the stuff was Colt anyhow. It was all solid forged, built-in carry handle. And I've got both style of rifle, and I looked at this video a couple times up close, and I took a look at mine, and he definitely has something that's got a flat top with a clamp-on handle, which was not around back then. The XR-15 does exist. It's made by Saber Defense, who's a defense contractor. So does that give his story some sort of plausibility? Possibly. But when you get your facts mixed up, you sound like an idiot. So if he really did buy this in Germany, where's the evidence? If this is really a Saber Defense XR-15, where's the evidence? If he bought it in 1990, where's the evidence? You might go, well, you're nitpicking little things. No, if he's willing to lie about that, he's willing to lie about a lot of things. Now, having used the M16A2, yeah, the bolt pops off the bolt catch just like it does on an AR-15. And there are NDs in the military all the time. That's why there's clearing barrels in front of the chow hall and other places, okay? That's another reason why they don't have them carry magazines, loaded magazines in the weapon, or they've got them in the weapon but they don't have one in the chamber. It's because NDs happen all the time. Your likelihood of having to load the weapon and use it, if you can't get it into action that fast, this isn't like a shootout in a convenience store. Okay, so to pull a mag from your pouch, put it in the mag well, pull the charging handle, flip it off safe, and engage the target. That's, so, because I hear all the people all the time, oh, the National Guard doesn't even have mags in their guns. That's so they don't have an ND. NDs do happen all the time in the military, but I can tell you, as many times as our bolts flew home on our M16A2s, whether they were unsafe or not, I don't ever recall an ND from that, because it's not an open bolt design. Just because it has selective fire, that 3-round burst, which is garbage, by the way, I had never seen that. But NDs do happen in the military. So if I thought he had some more plausible statements, I would back them up. But this is a guy mugging for his 15 minutes of fame, and they gave it to him.
Okay, Swift, that's for myself being not entirely familiar with some of the stuff. That's just NDs from the bolt slamming forward. That's what the AR has, a floating firing pin, correct?
Yeah, I'm not saying it would be impossible. I just never seen it.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask next. That's for if it could, it given the wrong set of circumstances happen. But yeah, I agree that just it slamming home on a on a loaded chamber, I wouldn't say it doesn't mean automatically goes off. But that was just
maybe
my own understanding.
Maybe if you had a filthy rifle, maybe
you would have to have a butt ton of inertia on it, because that hammer, if you've ever taken the lower off and pulled the trigger, that hammer hits pretty hard. I'm not saying hard enough to break something, but that firing pin is in there. You could put something in.
Maybe if you had a filthy weapon and your firing pin was stuck forward, maybe.
No. Okay, yeah, if it was stuck forward, yes. I was about to say, if the weapon was filthy, the firing pin wouldn't move at all. But if it was already in the forward position, yeah, it might be stuck. Yeah, you're right.
But I don't know how many times I've hit my bolt release and not had an ND.
Yeah,
there's a lot of times, though, when we're on patrol and whatnot, where we don't have a round in the chamber. And you might go, what if you get ambushed? Dude, I'm telling you, it is nothing to charge the weapon. I'm not saying every single time. But between using the safety and not having a round in the chamber, that's pretty standard for the military. However, there are times where you've got a round in the chamber and the safety is off. And anybody who has an AR-15 knows how easy it is for that bolt to fly. That bolt catch doesn't hold worth a damn.
Yeah.
But I still, even if he,
But let's
say all the stars aligned and it really did happen. What about all the other lies he just told in the video? What does that do to the man's credibility?
And let's not forget the fact. What kind of weapon was it that had the negligent discharge? Wasn't it a lever action?
It was a shotgun. Just buy a shotgun. It was a shotgun.
Yeah. It wasn't even an AR.
It was a shotgun. What else? Every time I marched in the Army, we never marched with loaded rifles. We never did. And if we did it one time, and that was like when we had to hump, a couple extra miles. We had a magazine in there.
Yeah.
Other than that, we never marched with live ammunition. Another thing, he's like, well, it was a shotgun that's loaded. It's a type of shotgun that's loaded all the time. What? So are you telling me this is like magic? It's a magic shotgun where you shoot the round off and a new primer just appears out of nowhere? This dude's a complete moron. This guy, if anybody listens to this guy, if those people want to continue to be some kind of relevancy in society, you would tell this guy, look, Jump Master Flash, Jack Master Flash, go away.
Jackwagon Flash.
He's a complete fool.
Yeah, he's got to go. Green Badger Outdoors says if Stupid was sold on the stock market, this guy would be arrested for inside trading. I agree. Wholeheartedly. Yeah. Armament and Axes gives a $2 super chat for Grandmaster J to get some proper training.
He straight lied through that whole video. Everything that he said was a lie. Every last bit of it. And all these people, he says, well, all these people that are criticizing me, and he used some swear words, you need to go over to that guy's video and put him in check because he's calling you guys all a bunch of liars. And you guys need to go put this guy in check. He needs to get knocked down a peg or two. This guy is I slammed my rifle today to try to make it shoot, and it did not go off when I slammed it on the ground and made the bolt go forward with a round. It didn't go
now
off.
an SKS will do that. An SKS, if you have a dirty bolt and the firing pin is stuck forward because they have a floating pin. And if your firing pin's stuck in a forward position from your bolt being filthy, it'll slam fire and run off all your rounds. But, actually maintaining your weapon fixes that problem.
But I think that comes down to, an operator error. If your weapon's that dirty, that's not a design issue. I think that's a operator error.
No, yeah, it's an operator headspace error for sure.
That's true. I was just, for my own, and I actually talked about if I ever, fired, dropped the hammer without the upper on my AR. I assembled mine from parts kits, so I get that. That's for, I was, some of the questions I was asking were trying to just weed out some different what ifs. So I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you guys going out, on a limb and explaining this stuff for everybody.
I wasn't putting the hammer thing out there for you specifically, but for somebody else who's maybe newer to the platform or something else like that. It comes forward with some force and it's got some heft to it because it's got to hit that firing pin just right.
Yes,
and it doesn't even come out very far. But to Budget's explanation, and M16s and AR-15s are dirt magnets. If you don't clean them properly, they're jam-o-matics, but still, look, if you're trying to exercise good firearm safety, you're not going to take any unnecessary risks. But, the whole shotgun thing, I mean, was it just a crappy gun? Did it have, at the end of the day, this guy doesn't have any credibility, that's all.
No. And at bottom line, this shouldn't have been near the trigger. Period. Moving on to our next contestant. This is a piece by Breitbart, from Breitbart by Pam Key from July 26, 2020. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot blames other states for Chicago's gun violence problem. It's all your fault, Ro.
Yeah,
Now
oh
to
my
discuss
God, is
safety
this
and
about
city of Chicago
Indiana
Mayor
where the pipeline?
Lori Lightfoot. Mayor Lightfoot, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice.
47%. Homicides are up 51% from last year.
She's gonna end up in
Accepting
your
federal
bed.
help from the Trump administration. Not everyone in Chicago is happy about that. A few nights ago, you had protesters outside your house unhappy with your decision to work with the Trump administration. What's the help you're accepting from the Trump administration, and what is your message to those protesters?
Well, let me be clear. This is not about working with the Trump administration. For decades now, in major cities across the country, FBI, DEA, ATF, those agents have been in our districts and do work in concert with local law enforcement to help support a number of efforts, not the least of which is violence in our cities. And so the opportunity presented itself under the management of the U.S. Attorney here. And I stress that because that's unlike what we saw in Portland, where the Trump administration parachuted in these additional federal agents without consulting anybody locally and ignoring
Hold up a
the
minute.
local U.S. Attorney.
Hold up a minute. Did her one eye just move off to the right while the other one went straight like a goddamn chameleon? I gotta back that up.
Eyes going every which way.
I'm sorry. But if I actually saw that, that is just awesome.
The Trump administration parachuted in these additional federal agents without consulting anybody.
No.
And ignoring
They both tracked at the same time.
You can't sneak up on her.
Here in Chicago. I've drawn a very hard line. We will not allow federal troops in our city. We will not tolerate unnamed agents taking people off the street, violating their rights, and holding them in custody. That's not happening here in Chicago.
Oh.
So I've drawn a very, very bright line. I've made that
Your own
clear
police aren't
to
arresting
every
nobody.
Federal authority that I've spoken with, and they understand that if they cross that line, we will not hesitate to use every tool at our disposal to stop troops and unwanted agents in our city. But obviously, we have
President
challenges
Trump.
regarding violence. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, President Trump said he had a great talk with you. He also suggested that if he had his way, he would essentially flood the city of Chicago with federal law enforcement. I want to play some sound from him and get your reaction. Take a listen.
Okay.
We could solve it. If they invited us in, we'd go in with 50,000, 75,000 people. We would be able to solve it like you wouldn't believe and quick. But they just don't want to ask, maybe for political reasons, but they don't want to ask. It's a disgrace.
What's your response, Madam Mayor?
Well, I mean, that's classic Trump hyperbole. I sent him a letter on Monday outlining the very specific things that the federal government is uniquely qualified to help with, starting with common sense gun control. The fact of the matter is, our gun problem is related to the fact that we have too many illegal guns on our street, 60% of which come from states outside of Illinois. We are being inundated with guns from states that have virtually no gun control, no background checks, no ban on assault weapons. That is hurting cities like Chicago. That is the thing that if the president really wanted to help, that and the other things I identified in my letter he could do today, tomorrow, but he's not really interested in helping in that way.
So, it's guns from everywhere else, because Chicago doesn't have enough gun control. So, we need to put Chicago gun control everywhere else. Let's see. She's an idiot. I mean, I still think that this is a close race here on this one, because she is a moron. She ought to have man, I'm so discombobulated from this. She ought to have a permanent spot on the roster as well.
With regard to the whole, they're coming in from other states, they are. in rail cars. There are at least 2 separate incidents I know where somebody broke into the rail yard in Chicago, broke into a boxcar, and guess what that boxcar was full of? It was full of guns.
Toilet paper.
On the way to distributors. 2 separate incidents, and those are only 2 that I'm aware of. How many other times has this happened where a firearm in transit going through Chicago, which is a place where a lot of transit happens, rail, ship, and air, and trucking, okay, and acquire these things. You think of the size of a boxcar. It's bigger than a semi-trailer, and it's full of guns, and this has happened at least twice. At least twice. So yeah, they are coming in from other states, because there's no factories in Chicago making guns. But they're not.
Green Badger Outdoors says, and yet, those states don't have the same violence problems Chicago has.
Yeah, amazing. Amazing.
So possibly it's not the guns, possibly it's not the other areas, possibly it's the leadership in Chicago for the past several decades being all left-wing Democrat, run into the freaking ground. But no, it couldn't possibly be their fault. It's roll calls because he sells guns to all the Chicagoans. That's why none of the other states have problems, because all their guns are in Chicago. What the hell?
He doesn't have any guns to sell anymore.
Well, it's because he sold them all to Chicago. He doesn't even put them. Roll call. I know what it is. You don't even bother putting them out on the display shelves. You go into the back and you just throw them all into a wheelbarrow and you take them over to Chicago and just dump them off into the gutter, right?
No,
preferably in front of a school.
They just show up in empty boxes like one did the other day. So I mean,
what
can you do? Yeah.
You got an empty box delivered to you? Awesome.
Yeah. Somebody stole the gun out of that one. That one happened in South Carolina. So it's probably in Chicago.
Wow.
I mean, to tell you the truth, there's small validity to what she said. I see it all the time. I stopped a straw purchase yesterday, and the girl blatantly said she was going to Chicago after buying this gun. So, I mean, the problem here in Indiana, and people are going to be like, well, you're anti-gun. Well, no, I'm not anti-gun. But the problem here in Indiana is all you need is a state ID or driver's license to purchase a gun. To carry a gun, you need a permit. That's it. The thing is how the criminals from Chicago are getting guns. And I've said this multiple times. I know how they're getting guns. They're coming here with either family, friends, or relatives, going to their house and paying a couple of bills, putting a couple of bills in their name, going to the license bureau and saying that they're a resident, and they get a state ID. When they get that state ID, they'll go to the gun shop and they'll purchase their firearm. Now, whether they pass the NICS check, if the NICS check works, because I've seen it not work several times, if they pass the NICS check, then they'll get a firearm and take it back to Chicago. Or, like what I stopped yesterday, they'll find some stupid person, whether it be male or female, it doesn't matter, or non-binary, because that's what the new paper is going to be, but they'll get that person to straw purchase the gun. That's how they get these guns.
In addition to stealing them within the borders of Illinois themselves as well.
Oh yeah. There's so many guns that get stolen in Gary that end up on Chicago street. It's not so much my area or so much the South Bend area or downstate, because they've been trying to pin this on Indianapolis for quite some time. It's the stolen guns. How many times have cops come to my counter or ATF agents because of stolen firearms? More often than you would ever think. More often than
wait a minute. Hold on a minute. So what you're telling me is that if a criminal wants something that they can't otherwise get, They steal it?
That is the correct terminology for that.
Holy shit!
That's why you got to be careful in November, because if they want to steal it,
Mail-in ballots, baby. Mail-in ballots. Dumb as hell. Speaking of dumb as hell, it's time to select the moron of the week. So here's our choices, folks. Grandmaster J from the Need Firearms classes, Lori Lightfoot, Beetlejuice herself, and as always with his honorary spot, Joe Biden. Squib, who's the biggest moron this week?
Well, we all love Creepy Uncle Joe, and the Chicago Chameleon is, such a huge idiot. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go for Jumpin' Jack Flash with his Saber Defense XR-15. Yep.
The Chicago Chameleon. That's awesome.
That's how she walks the streets and never gets shot, because she's got eyes in the back of her head.
One can look at the front, one can look at the back. Pickle, who do you think's the biggest moron this week?
I'm gonna have to go with Chicago Chameleon.
Chicago Chameleon. Roll call. Who do you pick?
I'm picking jump man.
All right. Corey, who do you think's the biggest moron this week?
I've heard the AR-15 get butchered so many different times, it just doesn't surprise me. So at this point, I'm going with the Chameleon.
You're going with
you can actually see a politician butcher an AR-15, physically butcher one on a YouTube video. Oh wait, no, they were violating federal law when they cut that one up, didn't they?
Yeah, no kidding. All right, folks. If you're a regular at the show, you know what to do. And if you're not a regular, pay attention, because you'll find out. This is where you get to tell me the fates of the people that we have on our list. Grandmaster J, Lori Lightfoot, the Chicago Chameleon, or Joe Biden. Go ahead and vote out there in the chat and tell me who you think should be the moron of the week. Let's see. We got Green Badger Outdoors says Grandmaster J. Chris Fulmer says Grandmaster J, but Chicago Mayor is a very close second. M. Gabriel says NFAC. Seven Wonders says he nominates Grandmaster J for Moron of the Month for July, so I'll take that as a vote for J. Armament and Axis says J. Ozzy Osbourne's barking at J. Patriot in the Dark says Run DMC, so yeah, Grandmaster J. That guy was actually Jam Master J, by the way. Gabe Stark says Grandy Master Dum Dum. Seven says Grandmaster J. So yes, I already got you down for him. Adventures of the Outdoors. Welcome to the show, by the way. I don't recognize the name, but Adventures votes for the Chicago Chameleon. Roll call says if you say Beatles' name too much, she'll come to your city and blame you for the violence in Chicago. Pink Panther says GMJ, the Aldi shopper. JDO says the big stink eye. AKA Chicago Mayor. The big stink eye. I'm stealing that, by the way. Oh, shit. You're gonna make me have a fucking stroke, dude.
This is what Patriot was talking about in the beginning of the show.
What? Yeah, Calavers, that's 3. So much for PG-13. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and call this. We got 11 for Grandmaster J, 4 for the big stink eye, and none for Joe Biden. So Grandmaster J of the Not Effing Around Coalition, you are, and I believe with much deserving, the moron of the week.
And there we had another tale of stupidity in this week's episode of Moron of the Week.
Now, Budget, everybody wants to know, when are you going to be doing your review of the Sabre Defense XR15?
Yeah. I'll run right out and get one.
I'm sure they could send you a T&E.
I got to get my composure, man, on that. Holy shit. That was hilarious. The great stink eye. So,
Every time you guys mention that reminds me of when in Total Recall, when he goes down the chute and he doesn't have a mask on and he starts like losing air and his eyes bug out.
Yes.
That's what it reminds me of.
She's Quaid on Mars. Shit, you're killing me, dude. That's great. Stop. Yes. All right. Whew. Now we're up for something awesome. This is our winner for this week for Balls of Steel. This is an awesome story. This little guy, well, you know, his cojones are just bigger than all ours put together, I think. This is from ctvnews.ca. Boy gets 90 stitches after saving little sister from dog attack, by Brooklyn Neustaedter from CTV News. Published Wednesday, July 15th, 2020. Toronto. A 6-year-old Wyoming boy is being hailed as a hero by his family after he protected his little sister from a dog attack and ended up needing 90 stitches to his face. Bridger Walker's aunt, Nikki Walker, shared details of the attack on Instagram. She wrote on July 9th that Bridger saw the dog approach his sister and deliberately stood in front of her. The dog attacked Bridger instead, biting the side of the boy's face and head, the aunt said. My nephew is a hero who saved his little sister from an attacking dog. He, himself, took on the attack so that the dog wouldn't get his sister. Despite being injured, Nikki said Bridger grabbed his sister's hand and ran with her to keep her safe. Nikki's Instagram post included photos of the siblings and Bridger following the attack with bruises and multiple stitches across his face. Nikki said that when she asked Bridger why he stepped in front of the dog, he told her that if someone was going to die, I thought it should be me. We love our brave boy, she wrote. As of Wednesday afternoon, the post has received more than 500,000 likes. Nikki said Bridger was treated by a skilled plastic surgeon following the attack and is now recovering at home. His wounds are looking so much better. He's in great spirits and his awesome personality is intact, Nikki said in an update to her post. He can't smile too widely yet, but he was grinning as I read some of your comments to him. Nikki also updated concerned users with information regarding the dog involved in the attack. The dog's owners are really great people who have been nothing but kind to Bridger and his family. We feel no resentment toward them at all, and, if anything, there's only been an increase of love between our families as a result of this incident, she wrote. While some social media users have been calling for Nikki to start a GoFundMe page to help with the boy's recovery, she said those interested can instead direct donations to Mission 22, a nonprofit geared towards preventing suicides among former service members, or the Wounded Warrior Project, a group dedicated to helping injured American military veterans. Nikki added that those wanting to support Bridger can send him photos of cool rocks, as he is a huge fan of science, especially geology. Let's go on a rock hunt. As you're out and about, be sure to take pictures of any cool rocks that you see. Be sure to tell him what state or country the rocks are in. Thank you again for all the love. #BridgerStrong, Nikki wrote in another post. Nikki is asking social media users to share Bridger's story in hopes of receiving a shout out from a Marvel superhero actor so they can hear about this latest hero who joined their ranks. Hulk actor Mark Ruffalo responded in a comment saying, people who put the well-beings of others in front of themselves are the most heroic and thoughtful people I know. I truly respect and admire your courage and your heart. Real courage isn't dominating people or fighting against people or walking around like a tough guy. Real courage is knowing what is right to do and doing it even when it might end up hurting you somehow," he added. Despite being part of the DC Comics universe, Anne Hathaway, who played Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises, dedicated an Instagram post to Bridger. "I'm not an Avenger, but I know a superhero when I see one. I can only hope I'm half as brave in my life as you are in yours, Bridger," Hathaway wrote in a caption. There's a picture of the poor guy with all his stitches. Yeah, that dog did a number on him. But that the courage that little guy showed is just so incredible. It just, man, he
you know, Budget.
Wow.
Look at it like this. This kid gives us hope for America's future.
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing, they're still friends with the dog owner. They didn't turn it into it. It's something. That's something that you wouldn't see somebody do. They tried to stay objective. And lastly, the most important thing after that their son is a hero, they didn't cash in on it. How many people would have already have an Indiegogo over this?
Yep.
No, we don't want your money. We don't. We just want some pictures of cool rocks because he's into geology. This is a true American story. This should be on the 6 o'clock news every night, not the COVID horse shit.
Yes, absolutely right. You know, Bridger, my hat's off to you, little dude. Once they drop, you will definitely have some balls of steel, man. That is just hell with that. They already did drop after that, without any doubt, man. You are now the kid's not from Toronto, but the story was from someone in Toronto. The kid's from Wyoming, Patriot. But that's awesome. And Armament Nexus points out that Mark Ruffalo is a far leftist, and yes, he is. But even a stop clock is right twice a day, and he's dead on with this kid. So awesome, Bridger. You definitely have balls of steel, young man. And you know, that brings us to our last segment. What is Roll Call 219's favorite segment? I'm waiting for it, Ro. Come on. He's got a red. There you go. Yay! You know, if I ever do get around to doing an intro for this segment, that's gonna have to be in it. I'll flash up a picture of your face with you going, "Yay!" because that's just awesome. Anyhow, Roll Call 219's favorite segment, self-defense shoutouts. For those of you who are new to the show or who have never stuck around to the end, self-defense shoutouts are not where I'm reveling in the proposition that the bad guy won the room temperature challenge by taking a dirt nap. It's where I'm reveling in the proposition that the good guys had the means, method, and opportunity to prevent the bad guy from making them do the same. And first up in our self-defense shoutouts, this is from MSN.com. Yes, I know, but it's where the story came from. By Amber Ruch, one day ago, or Ruck, or Ruch, or however the hell you pronounce that. My apologies. Graves County, Kentucky shooting under investigation. Graves County, Kentucky. A Graves County man was shot early this morning after reportedly kicking in a door on a home and gaining entry. At around 3 a.m., when the homeowner called 911 to report that a man wearing a mask forced his way into his home while armed with a shotgun. The home is located on Kentucky Highway 1710, just south of Kentucky Highway 58 East. The homeowner met the suspect, and the suspect reportedly fled from the scene after getting into a small-sized vehicle. Deputies responded to the area and were able to collect evidence left behind by the suspect. At around 4:45 a.m., the 74-year-old resident and homeowner called 911 again. He reported that a man kicked in his door again, armed with a shotgun. The caller stated that he had shot the intruder with a shotgun after the intruder entered his home. The intruder had fled on foot. Must have been using birdshot. Minutes later, as law enforcement was arriving in the area, Mayfield police, who had responded to assist, had located 19-year-old James Page II just down the road from the home with a severe shotgun wound to his arm. Sheriff's deputies also recovered a shotgun that had been in the suspect's possession. Mayfield Graves County EMS treated and transported James Page II, who was later airlifted to an out-of-state hospital. His condition is not believed to be life-threatening. The investigation has led investigators to obtaining arrest warrants for James Page II for first-degree burglary and other related charges. The homeowner is not facing any charges. And that's how that should be. Next up, from NBCLosAngeles.com, Koreatown. Suspected robber who was fatally stabbed after shooting man in Koreatown identified. Come on, really? I don't want all this garbage. Thank you. Let's see. Authorities Tuesday identified a suspect who was fatally stabbed by a man he allegedly shot during a robbery attempt over the weekend in Koreatown. This is from July 28, 2020. Ola Arugandade, I think is how you would pronounce that. Ola Arugandade, 23, allegedly broke into an apartment in the 3000 block of Wilshire Boulevard about 5:45 p.m. Sunday and shot the resident, who then stabbed him, according to the Los Angeles Police Department. Arugandade died at the scene, the coroner's office reported. His city of residence was not known. The resident, a man in his 30s, whose name was not released, was hospitalized in stable condition, according to the LAPD. The case remains under investigation. And last but most certainly not least, from KansasCity.com. This is from the Kansas City Star. Doesn't say when it was published, but I think it's recently. There it is. No, wait, no. It's recently anyway. An Independence homeowner shot and injured an intruder who broke into a home early Wednesday. At about 4 a.m., a man forced his way through the front door of a home in the 1300 block of South McHenry Street in eastern Independence. At some point, there was a confrontation between him and the homeowner, said Independence police spokesman Tom Gentry. The homeowner had a weapon and shot the intruder. The intruder fled and collapsed nearby, Gentry said, before a neighbor took him to a hospital. By the time the police were notified, Gentry said, the suspect already was at a hospital. Police deployed officers to both the hospital and the home. Police have not released the intruder's name, and his condition is unknown. Multiple shots were fired, but it's unclear whether the intruder had a gun, Gentry said. The homeowner, who appeared to be alone in the house, was not injured. Good for him. So there you have it, folks. 3 instances where someone, two of them involved the good guy having a firearm and the other had a knife, which is still arms, where despite what the mainstream media would have you believe, the good guys resisted the bad guys, and all turned out the way it was supposed to. And on that note, let's go ahead and sweep up the floors and roll up the awnings, stack the chairs on top of the tables, and get this mother out of here. So, yeah, Corey says one of the very few times a knife wins a gunfight. Absolutely. So, I want to thank all of you for coming, and I'd like to thank my esteemed panel. Squib, is there anything you'd like to leave us with? Any plugs you'd like to make? Any words of wisdom, final thoughts?
2 plugs. Go over to Pew Pew Park's channel and check out his Flashmaster J video. I've been putting links all throughout the chat. And in 7 hours on the Travis P11 channel, Caliber Corner number 147, vehicle travel in uncertain times. So that ought to be interesting. And also, thanks for the invite. Good panel tonight. Good show.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Roll call. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with? Anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, go to my channel. It's Roll Call 209 on YouTube. Follow me on Instagram at the same name. I would appreciate it. I got a couple videos coming out, but I'm looking at my video editor, and for some reason it's not letting me upload videos, so this is going to have to wait until tomorrow. But thanks for having me on the show. Go check out my channel, go subscribe, or at least comment, do something. I appreciate it. Like always, Budget, thanks for having me on.
You're always welcome, brother. Corey, thanks for coming into the show tonight. You know, dude, you're welcome back anytime you want to. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with? Any final thoughts you have?
Well, thanks for having me. I guess the biggest thing from my standpoint is those of you listening that just purchased a firearm or started carrying, just continue to seek out training and become proficient with what you have.
Absolutely right. Looks like Calaveras 32 Special had to drop out, so folks, go check out his channel, Calaveras 32 Special. Thanks for being part of the show tonight, Pickle. I really appreciate it, and you are always welcome back as well. That's kind of why you get the invite every week, right? As far as thanks for coming by, again, man, this thing started at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. It is now 1:57 a.m. Eastern, and you guys are still here. Some of you were from the very beginning. You could have, as always, been doing absolutely anything on your Friday night, yet you've chosen to sit here and have this conversation with us. I can't begin to tell you how much that means to me, and as always, I am humbled and amazed that you've chosen to do this. You know, it's just, you know, I say it every week because it's true, man. You guys are why the show is what it is, and you know, I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. You know, we have all this garbage going on in the world today, so it's not more important now than ever to tell your Congress critters and elected representatives what you think. Send them a snail mail, email, telephone, telegraph, smoke signals, carrier pigeon, bicycle messengers, tom-toms, anything that you have to do to let them know what you think, and never, ever, ever give up the fight. I'll see you guys on the next one.